One of my
Hi, everybody. Welcome to
Dominic's on
the
here.
October meeting.
One of my other students is here. Not this year. She's a senior.
And hey, Michelle, please mute.
Okay, sorry.
That's right. Welcome. The meeting's being recorded. And just so everybody knows. And at the end of the meeting, we'll stop the recording. It'll be available in a few days for people who missed the meeting, or if you want to go back and review part of it. So today is an interesting day. As last night, I learned that the planned guest speaker has come down with COVID. So he will not be here speaking today. So I was working all day to modify the presentation a little bit and do some interactive things with all of you while we're in replacement of that time. And so what we're going to do is I'll go through the usual openings. Then we'll have our discussion, my planned discussion today. And then at the end of the meeting, we have quite a few pictures to go through. Thank you very much. And we'll wrap up the meeting with those pictures. So we're going to have a lot of time for discussion today. So first, let me get on the right screen. Here's our Astro humor for the day, for the month. There you go. And I want to welcome, is there everybody here, as well as any new members and guests who are joining. So first, do we have any new members? First time people who are members joining this call? No new members today. Okay, any guests?
Actually, I just never joined Zoom before. I am a member. I've just never been on a Zoom call before.
Lisa, well, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. Do you have a
my first time joining the Zoom meeting too?
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Yudi. Any other new members or first time joiners? Well, we'll give our first time joiners a HAL welcome. Yeah. So any guests? Visitors? Any class members from Michelle's class? I know Perry's on, but he's being shy. So, yeah. All right. So, well, we'll welcome the guests. And here, so first, I want to once again, I always want to acknowledge our officers and our chair people that really work really hard to keep HAL running, and it's really great. This is not a one-person operation by any means, as all of you know. So everybody really does a great job of keeping it together for all of us. So with that said, are there any? I don't know if Dale is on. I haven't seen him. I know there's a bit of work going on in the observatory. I don't know if somebody wants to talk about what we're doing with the some of the maintenance on there, but the observatory is functional. I don't know, Victor or somebody else, if you want to just talk to that for a couple of minutes.
Well, we did some repair work on the dome, and there's a little bit more repair work to be done on the dome in terms of getting the rotation smooth and whatnot. And there's some also, Dale and I have been talking about some, we haven't brought it up before the board yet, but we've been strategizing on some upgrades to the gear within the observatory, namely the image train, maybe some a filter wheel and whatnot. So yeah, we're just kind of doing some maintenance and making sure it all moves and does what it needs to do.
Right. And then you've done some training also for some of the CTOs and CTAs. Yeah.
So now that we're back to having live in-person star parties, we need to have some more people that know how to operate the equipment. And since the equipment was upgraded during COVID, a lot of the people who were previously telescope operating members, we're just kind of refreshing them on the new stuff. It's mostly Dale who did the upgrades, and so I'm acting assistant to Dale to help him, I guess, given time and everything.
Thank you very much. It's great. Bob, anything to report with the library? You're on mute, Bob. You have to unmute. I see your lips moving. There you go.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Yes, nothing new has been added to the library. I did note an email to the board members today if they wanted to add anything. But no one has contacted me about taking any books out.
Okay. Okay.
There was at the last Star Party, there was one member who checked out a book, filled out the form. We can talk about that offline.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I
Yeah,
did not
welcome.
know that.
Yeah, no, it's, yeah.
Right. Any of the other chair people or officers have anything to report? Nope. Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide here. So some of the things that took place between our last monthly meeting and today, the Robinson Nature Center also resumed its open house after having missed last year due to COVID. And it was very well attended. They had about, I think, 253 people is the report that I heard. And I believe that we had probably around 75 to 80 people that came to visit us. So this is what we look like over here. We had, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we had 7 telescopes total, 6 or 7 telescopes total. So what was interesting there was a couple of things. Not only for a change, it was a perfectly clear day the entire time. Unfortunately, the solar activity was relatively minimal until the event ended. And about for 20, 30 minutes after, right at the end there, we watched an incredible amount of activity right in front of us happening with a flare and resulting filaments. And it was, of course, it was right after everybody was done coming by. But, and Michelle and Eric were looking at something other than the sun with one of the telescopes, which the people got a kick out of. Michelle, you want to talk to that real quick?
Sure. Actually, Eric's here.
Okay, you never talk to it.
I don't know. Basically, I figured there were already 6 telescopes looking at the sun. And as you said, the sun wasn't being very interesting for most of the day. So I realized that Venus was far enough away from the sun that it could be looked at safely and high enough that we could find it. So I had my telescope pointed at Venus. It was roughly a quarter Venus. I don't know if that's the right phrase for a Venus looks like a quarter moon. But a lot of people were really surprised that in the middle of the daytime, you could see things in the sky through a telescope.
They got a big kick out of it. So that was a good idea.
Well, thank you.
So one of the other things that was a little different this year is I decided to try something. So I brought as you can see in the picture, I brought a large flat panel computer display with me, and I overexposed it a bit. And so some of the kids, everybody who have hard time with the eye relief on eyepieces and everything, they enjoyed walking around and seeing the sun on the computer screen. And so you can see that in the bottom center picture there. They would just walk around, and we had tables over there. And you can see Hannah up there helping, talking to people and assisting up and down the row with telescopes when some of us needed a break for a few minutes. But the other thing that we did at the end is we let people bring their cell phone and put their cell phone on my hydrogen alpha telescope there at the bottom right. And they were taking pictures of the sun with their cell phone and bringing them home with them. So this was kind of a cool thing. So here's There's a quick little video, just a few seconds there. You can hear people, whoa, but they really enjoyed that. I got a couple good pictures. I know Hannah got some pictures, I think, with your cell phone, right, Hannah? And so that was, they enjoyed that. So it was overall, it was a successful event at the Robinson Nature Center. And we did well. So I want to thank everybody, Bob and Eric and Michelle and Steve, and who else was there with us? Anybody on the call that I missed? I know there's some. So anyways, we had, it was a really good time. Oh, gotta go to here. Here we go. The other thing is we had our public star party, and it was also International Observe the Moon Night. From the emails, I could see it was a big success. I'll let those of you who were there share, whether you were there working or you're there as an observer, participant. I wasn't there, so I'll let you guys tell what was going on. Who wants to start?
I'll start briefly and just say that I have never been to a star party before where when I drove up, it was completely overcast gray and it had been raining. It was strange to, it really was a very rapid change in the weather that night. And, given that, it was amazing how many people came out.
Yeah, but it did clear up, right?
Oh yeah, cleared up. It took a little while, and we had some very nice skies. A little bit of, it was a little windy, so the seeing wasn't the best, but it got really nice and transparent.
But Hannah, you were able to get a picture, it looks like.
Yeah, I was there. I showed up around 6 to help Victor and Dale open up Halo because they had been doing some work on it earlier that day. And I helped to co-pilot the scope, which was really exciting. And thanks to Victor and Dale's plate solving abilities, I was able to capture about 22 minutes of data on the Dumbbell Nebula, which was really exciting. So that's what I have there. And then the picture on the bottom was kind of what the skies looked like right after it stopped raining. So the clouds got very orange, even though I hear an echo. I don't know if that's me or not, but
I think somebody's got their mic open.
oh no, there's someone else. Hello. But the skies were really beautiful right as the rain stopped. The skies were bright orange. I looked outside and started yelling to Joel to go look at the rainbow because you could see both ends of it. So I managed to snap that pic right beforehand. But other than that, I mean, it was a very good turnout, I think, despite, I think people seeing the cloudy skies and wondering what, how good seeing is going to be. And even when the skies were still pretty patchy, we were able to kind of navigate around the clouds with using the Illig scope. And yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
Michelle, were you able to do anything with the students that night, or was the weather a deterrent?
Well, no, it was the bus never showed up for my kids, which was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
One student and their parents came and they followed me to the park, and he was using the Galileo scope that we brought for him. And he had a great time. He got some great views of the moon with the Galileo scope. And Eric and I were looking at Venus at first, because that was a little bright and it was right at the edge of the horizon, ready to set. And then the clouds moved out, so we were able to finally see Jupiter and Saturn and the moon.
Well, good. Sorry about the bus not working. Murphy's Laws. I thought for sure the weather was gonna be crystal clear because I was out of town.
Is Bob Savoy on the line?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, Bob was there with his orrery and it was amazing.
Yeah, I set up a table actually inside the observatory because it was still raining a little bit. And so I set up the table inside the observatory, and Dominic from Michelle's school.
Right, he's my.
Yeah, he helped me carry it out, and And so I had the club's size scale solar system up. And in addition, I put up my own orrery of the mechanical solar system. And that was a big hit. The kids and the parents really liked that a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So is Crystal, are you on? Hey. So I'm going to introduce Crystal Rowland to everybody. If you haven't had a chance to meet her, she's one of our new members. So welcome. And Crystal is working over at the Glenelg Country School. And myself and Richard Orr were over there working with her yesterday. And I'll turn it over to Crystal. I want to let everybody know what's going on over at Glenelg.
Yeah, so thank you. Again, I'm Crystal Rowland. I'm actually the upper school science, robotics, and astronomy teacher. So I have my hands full, but I've been really excited. Over the summer, I've been working really hard to restore the GCS observatory to its full capacity. We are having our first observing open house tomorrow night, and I apologize for the short notice. But the telescope is now operational, and I'm inviting student volunteers who are going to be setting up some of their demonstrations that they learned in class. And I really hope that if anyone's interested, that you'll come out to the campus, have a look at our telescope, and get to mix and mingle with the students and parents who are really excited to see the facility operating again.
Yeah, thanks. So Crystal's got a big job ahead of her. She's the sole person responsible for this. And if you look at the observatory, first, the dome is the same one we have. The mount is the same one we have. And the refractor is the same size, except it's an astrophysics when we have a Takahashi. And then they also have a warm room building separate, which is very nice. And she's, been working hard to get this restored and back into good operating order. And Richard and I were there. Mostly Richard was, giving some good advice because he's got so much history with this particular observatory. And so we're gonna support tomorrow with whoever can make it with volunteers.
7:30 to 9:30, by the way.
What's that?
I forgot to mention a time that is 7:30 to 9:30.
7:30, 9:30. Yeah, your microphone's breaking up a little.
Sorry, the time is 7:30 to 9:30 tomorrow on campus.
Okay. So Bob and I had a talk, Bob Savoy. We were talking today, Crystal, and we were talking about, are we going to bring out some telescopes? And Bob had a question about the tables. Will you have a table for him to put his stuff up for his education piece?
Yes, so we do have a 6-foot foldable table that will be out near the walkway between the observatory and the control room.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to show up early so we
Yes.
can get everything set up, and we'll probably, if the weather's good, we'll bring a telescope out also. But we know you want us to be available too, to help others with their telescope, right?
Yes, yes.
Great. So we're really excited to be partnered with this. We had the opportunity to meet the relatively new head of Glenelg Country School, as well as the headmaster of the upper school, as it's called. And they're both very supportive of what Crystal's doing. And they're very happy that HAL is participating as a community member. So this is good for all of us. And just the last part of this, so I don't know how, I know more than a few of you who are on this call were at the event in 2013 at Glenelg for Mars. And there was over 200 people there. So we're hoping to be able to use that facility and that area again sometime for another community event at Glenelg. So, and they were very supportive of it. So great. So this will be wonderful. As far as our own members only star parties and public star parties, we're winding down. We have 2 scheduled events coming up at the end of this month. Is our last official members only star party of the season, and we'll resume again in March. And then our last public star party is in November. The impromptus will continue to move on. And we'll be very active, and that's going to be the what we're really going to talk about in this meeting here today. And the good news, Yvonne, is you don't have to take notes for this one. So we're wrapping it up. So I wanted to give you guys this list here. Once again, you could see the website that I pull this information from. These are events that are coming up between this meeting and into early December. You could see what's major events are happening. So, hopefully the weather will cooperate and some of these meteor showers will produce some meteors for us to see. There you go. So Victor. So this is, okay, so that's kind of the end of the opening, covering the business details and stuff. But I've been talking about grabbing data from our observatory HALO and then making it available to everybody so we could start doing processing Astro schools. And Victor, you want to talk about this?
This could be the first set of data that we use for an Astro school. This is a few weeks ago, I actually collected some data using the HALO scope. I collected the full set that we would need to do to process. I got darks, flats, flat darks, and lights, and it's a big data set. So I processed it just to see if the data came out okay. And I thought perhaps, we could use this at some point when we schedule an Astro school, maybe make the data available if anybody wants to process it themselves, and maybe just walk through the basic processing flow for, using PixInsight or some other technique, some other, software.
Yeah, first, it's a wonderful picture. There's no question about it. It looks beautiful. And what we've been discussing, and Ken, I see you're on. What we have to do is find a way to give you, whoever wants to do this, to give you easy access at the data. You know how much there is approximately, Victor? How large this file is?
So it's almost 9 gigabytes of data. And here's a hint if you're going to process it. I didn't use all of the lights. There's over 200 lights, and they were each 20-second exposures.
You want to explain what that is for those who may not know?
Well, when you if you're not an Astro person, then when you think of taking a photo, you normally think of this camera snapshot, the shutter opening and closing very quickly, and you hear the sound when you take a picture. When you do Astro pictures, the subjects that you're photographing are very dim, so you don't take a really snap. You open the shutter and you let it stay open for a while, and then you close the shutter. So in this case, I opened the shutter on the camera, commanded it with the computer, and it stayed open for 20 seconds before shutting. And then the software, which is driving everything, which is Nina, which is astrophotography software that Dale Gent is part of, is one of the developers of, who's on our member, our observatory chair. I think he's on. Yeah, he's on.
Hey, good evening.
Hey, Dale.
So anyways, you open the shutter, you collect 20 seconds worth of light, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. Then you take all those things and you kind of add them up in the computer and integrate them to improve the signal to the noise ratio. And that's part of the processing process.
So for those of you on this in our meeting tonight, maybe by raising hands, we can see almost everybody, or just unmute if you're not on video. Would you be interested in participating in processing the same data?
I'd be very interested in doing that.
Great, great. So we'll work with Dale and with Ken to find the best place to put this data. I know I've been talking about it, but yeah, my word, we'll get it figured out in the next couple of weeks on where the data is going to be. Let everybody know that. Then we'll talk about who's going to run a class using what tool, because we may have people doing different classes, one using PixInsight, one doing something else, and on how to work with these data. And we'll do it from everywhere from beginners to experts. That's the nice thing with having a common data set is you have comparison points. And, as everybody sees from our gallery presentations that we do every month, there's many times a lot of images of the same object, but they look different. And so this is great. So very excited and glad we have this excellent data set here to work with. So Ken and Dale, I'll drop you guys an email to get started. And Victor.
Sure.
All right. Well, so that's that. And now it's time we're coming into winter. If for the Game of Thrones fans, winter is coming. Hopefully there won't be any wraiths rather. But this was me, and when Halo used to be in the Arctic, and I was cold that day, but I got my solar stuff going on. So this is what I want to do during the in replacement of the speaker for tonight is have an open conversation with all of you on what kind of activities, what kind of events, what kind of things would you like to do with HAL over the winter months. So I'm just going to open it up here. I don't want to really give any lead-ins because I don't want to kind of sway the conversation. But so anybody want to start? What's of interest to you that we could do as a group or in subgroups over the winter months? Go ahead, Lisa. I see you raising.
I live near the Robinson Nature Center, and I'd love to have a planetarium presentation discussion thing.
Okay, I'm taking notes.
I don't know if you can have more than one, but since it's going to be, I don't know how long it's going to take people to get there, but it give people a good reason to come together. And I've seen the planetarium at Robinson Nature Center. It's wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's all been upgraded. It's got a very professional system in there now. I think the limit to the number of people in there is 59. It was a crazy kind of number, but that'll be probably plenty. And at least just so you know, our group, for those who've been around a while, we know how to get to Robinson Nature Center very well because that's where this meeting took place up until COVID. So, I'm going to ask about a December event here real quick. Maybe I'll do this now while you guys are thinking. Go ahead.
Phil, I would like to say about the planetarium at the Robinson Nature Center. They're limiting to less than 50 people because of COVID.
Okay.
And it's not a free air flowing room, and so they've limited to 20, I think, or 25 people. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, I'll talk to them over there, get the rules, see if they could set a date aside for us and have somebody who could run the system available. And we'll put a word out and what is that capacity. That'll be it. And I have a waiting list and we could always do a second run if there's a big enough crowd. So
sounds good.
Yep.
Hey.
Go ahead. So last year, we didn't get to do our annual holiday party inside Robinson Nature Center. That's been going on since pretty much the club started, having that annual event, which is a potluck. And like I said, I was very disappointed not getting my meatballs. And from those of you who make homemade meatballs, but so this year, I'm interested if we had an event, a holiday event where we just get together with with potluck like we've done in the past. Just from this sample size group, which is almost 40 connected devices, that would, it's a good sample set, for how many of you would be willing, you would come to an event in person for this, and nobody should feel any pressure. So just raise your hands, thumbs up, you could do the thumbs up, thumbs down thing on the Zoom, because I want to know, if we could get, a reasonable amount, then we'll, 15, 20 people that want to get together, then that's enough. And it doesn't have to necessarily replace this call. So, okay, I see some hands up there. Okay. So, the rule is, and I'm not opening it up to this part to a conversation or discussion or philosophy, is that we're going to be unmasked while we're eating. So it would be great, that everybody needs to be vaccinated who's going to come. So it's no different than anything else you've ever heard about in any of these other public places. So, but okay, well, that's great. Let me start planning that, and then we'll still do something on Zoom for everybody also. Or maybe I could coordinate a Zoom from that event, but it gets a little challenging, but you never know. Go ahead.
What was what was about the count of people saying thumbs up?
I look like between 8 and 10 for here for now. And then we have, everybody else who's not on, we have 300 some members. We have usually about 50 to 60 that participate on this call, and others that come to the event that are not, that don't get on this call. So we'll put it out, and we'll ask people to RSVP so we know what's coming. And we also want to make sure that we have a little diversity in the food that's coming, so everybody doesn't show up bringing chips or meatballs. But so we'll start that.
We could even have it in a park.
We'll start this planning before Thanksgiving, because I don't want to wait till after Thanksgiving.
Right.
Okay. Will you have a thought, Bob?
Maybe we could rent one of the enclosed pavilions at a park.
That's a good idea, except I'm concerned that it's going to be very cold outside in December.
Well, as I said, enclosed pavilion.
Oh, enclosed pavilion. Well, we'll have to talk about it.
Yeah.
We do have an obligation to utilize Robinson Nature Center. We have an agreement that I just signed for another year. And so we got to watch all that stuff. So, okay,
Right.
so let me make a note here. I'll keep everybody posted by email. All right, so continuing on with our, I'm going to stop sharing for a minute here so we can see each other better. Give everybody a full screen. So what other kinds of things would you like to do over the winter months? You have to unmute.
Can I share a few events?
Yeah, it could be an activity or Zoom. It doesn't have to be a big event of some kind.
Yeah. So on the Robinson Nature Observatory, you could try observing wintertime objects which only appear in the wintertime. Maybe M42, the Orion Nebula. It doesn't pop up in summer. And it's a really great wintertime object with a magnitude of 4.
That's a
Basically just observing seasonal wintertime.
That's a great idea. That we're definitely going to make that happen.
Yeah, because I've been going crazy. M42.
And that old age is
brightest
wearing it
nebula.
out. Great. Okay. What else should we be doing? Anybody's got I mean, this group is a group that comes to these meetings all the time and everything. So I would think,
Can HAL get involved in the spot Santa with our telescopes? Can we keep an eye out for Santa somehow?
the Christmas Eve event.
Yes. I don't know.
Santa is too small to observe with our naked eyes. We could have our telescopes roving around for.
Oh, we have a very special group of telescopes at HAL that we keep in our secret Christmas time storage area, Arjun, that
Yeah.
you have to know the secret handshake in order to find out exactly where that is. But it'll spot Santa. It's incredible, you know. Yeah, so Santa becomes a very high magnitude object at the right moment. So you have to know what you're looking for.
And you need that special broadband filter to fit him in.
Right, you need that Christmas filter. Yeah, so.
I'm not sure. I feel like there would be less stars blocking Santa's view if he used
Yeah, but those reindeer, they got it figured out.
I think Rudolph's nose is hydrogen alpha.
Yeah, yeah, right.
No, he uses the show palette. It's sulfur.
All right, I did write it down though. I think this could be, this one we'll probably do from your own backyards and you'll have to report live. Maybe we'll open up the Zoom or something and we'll just keep it open for who wants to pop in and type notes in the chat or whatever. That, you know, you've had your Santa sighting, you could give the coordinates. So
I'll be awake all Christmas Eve.
Okay, right. Anything else?
Just thinking out loud,
Yeah.
along the lines of doing this, everybody process the same data. It might be interesting for the imagers to all image the same object and process it and look at the differences in the telescopes, the sky conditions, the amount of exposure time, all this kind of stuff. And of course, the processing that you did on it. So the idea would be everybody image it and process it. And, you know, maybe we do a presentation as the guest speaker that night, one night on a meeting or something.
Yeah, I'm super down for that.
What was that?
I'm super in favor of doing that. I would participate.
I mean, yeah, so we'd have to figure out what object to image.
Maybe Arjun's suggestion of M42.
It's a good one.
It's a good one, but I'd actually suggest something that's maybe a little more challenging for the sky conditions. M42 is challenging, don't misunderstand me, because of the brightness range and the size and that kind of stuff. But
California Nebula.
okay, I'm saying we just need to decide on a target. So maybe M42, maybe California, maybe a galaxy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Figure out who's interested to participate, and then we can decide on a target.
Yeah, you know, I would, if you guys just use the Google group conversation there, maybe so the imagers and you guys could work it out there, and somebody who, you know, somebody just kind of, you'll see if there's more mass for some than for one target than others. And then you guys just decide yourselves on what that's going to be. And what we'll do is we'll set a time frame that you should complete your image by. So then we could start the program at that point. So, you know, whatever that's going to be. But you guys will have to, who are the imagers? So one of you start at Wayne or somebody start the conversation, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Good.
I actually have a challenge for everybody.
What's that?
I have a challenge for everybody.
Go ahead.
So if anybody could try looking at the Pleiades, you guys should try observing the Pleiades nebulosity, because there isn't much of it left, and it's going to take like a really long time in order to observe that. So if you guys are willing to stay up all night, you can observe the Pleiades nebulosity.
Good idea. I'm writing it down. Thank you.
the Merope Nebula, I think it's called, right?
Merope, however you pronounce
Can we disqualify Dale?
What? I never liked that
Right up front.
constellation anyway. 45 was a bad number. Anyway, I actually have one idea, and this may be skewing things too far towards the imaging side of subject matter, but the next version of Nina is going to be released probably in the next month or so, and with it comes a new sequencing engine that's pretty powerful and pretty different from what people tend to be used to in the sequencing world. So maybe a day-long workshop on how to use new advanced sequencer in Nina or something like that would could be a topic of discussion. I've been working on some kind of like not training material, but stuff that could be training material on and off over the past couple months. So I could find some time to present that over an evening or weekend or something like that.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I can say I've been using the advanced sequencer, and it is extraordinarily powerful and very useful, but it is, as Dale said, very different from what most sequencers are. And when I first started looking at it, my first thought was, wow, this is just how we command spacecraft instruments.
So Dale, maybe you could take a moment and explain to those who have not heard of a sequencer before, what is a sequencer?
Well, astrophotography, when you get down to it, is a very boring and repetitive task. You're just taking a bunch of exposures over some amount of time. And you have a mount to control, you have a camera to control, you have a filter wheel or a focuser or something like that. And this all needs to be worked in concert with each other, because obviously you don't want to focus while you're taking in an exposure, and you don't want to move the mount while you're taking exposures or anything like that. So a sequencer is an application on the computer that ties all this stuff together, all the hardware together, and we call it orchestration in the IT world. Makes it all work in concert with each other. So how you define that as orders of operations is done in the application called a sequencer. You program in or specify a sequence of events. I want to do this, then that, and that, and I want to do it in a loop or just one time at a go and stuff like that. So there's various ways to express this kind of sequence of events. And so the new sequencer in this application that I work on with a bunch of other people called Nina presents it in as far as astrophotography sequencers go, in a kind of a new light, in a new way, that with a goal of total flexibility. So with that comes complexity. So it can be a bit daunting to certainly the first, the new astrophotographer, and probably even to the seasoned one too. But after learning the basic concepts, I believe that it could be fairly accessible to anybody. So I can give a course of such on that topic.
Okay.
I would love that.
Yeah, when Dale says it's complex, that means there's lots of ways to hang yourself.
Oh yeah, we have a shoot yourself in the foot instruction. If you want to shoot yourself in the foot, go right ahead.
And Dale, I would just like to add that astrophotography is only boring and repetitive if you have good equipment.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I'm never bored. I'm constantly monitoring and jumping around and looking and making sure.
I press one button and go to bed. I wake up in the morning to a park scope and a full hard drive.
Dale, for Nina software, do you have to have, or I was going to ask, do you have to have a powerful laptop? But let me ask it maybe a different way: is what size laptop will be, do you need, what kind of processor, that to make sure that it's going to run.
Well,
Not even talking about storage space for the data.
Right.
You could offload that onto a different device. Or whatever.
Right. Well, astrophotography itself doesn't require a whole lot of horsepower. It's computationally, it's very boring. Very boring. Your computer sits there and waits a lot of the time to do things. So CPU wise, a J series Celeron, an i3, a low power, the 10 or 15 watt PDP low power i3 or i5 CPUs, those are more than sufficient to run an astrophotography app. So there's one person I know who runs it on a little Intel Atom-based compute stick. It's about that long, and it just plugs into a USB port.
Okay.
It's a little painful, but he does it. But it goes to show just like how small. And memory-wise,
yep,
4 gigs of RAM, 8 gigs of RAM would be, quite sufficient. So you don't need anything major in that category either. Okay. And storage, I mean, it depends on how big your sensor is, how many pixels there are.
Right.
So
when you're capturing your images, what file format are you usually using with your Nina?
So Nina saves in 3. TIFF fits in XISF. If you want to be compatible across all processing applications, which you would then subsequently feed all your images into, you would save it as the FITS format, which is a format that was invented in the late 70s and has been extended through the decades. And it's kind of like the file lingua franca of astronomy images. But I actually save my images because I do my processing in PixInsight. PixInsight invented a file format called XISF, which stands for Extensible Image. What's the S stand for? Something framework, and a serialized framework, and so it's essentially the same thing as FITS, but in a more modern format. But one of the best things it has is it uses compression. Really good compression. If you're a computer geek, it's LZ4. You can also use zip compression. But what it means is that your image files become very small. It's lossless compression, so you're not losing any data. The image is reconstituted as it was taken from your camera, so don't worry about that. But I use a 60 megapixel sensor in my camera, and a single image from that is 120 megabytes. So if I'm taking a couple hundred a night, that's a lot of disk space, and I transfer all that stuff off my imaging PC to my processing PC over the network, so that takes a lot. But with the compression turned on using this file format, files are half the size roughly. So I use half the hard drive space, and it takes half as long to transfer the data off my computer in the morning. So
there's some questions in chat.
Yeah.
Comments in chat.
How big are the FITS? Well, the FITS files for my camera. Now, the size of your image file is dictated by how many pixels your sensor has, because each pixel is 16 bits of data. So the more data, the more pixels you have, the more data is in the file. Thus, how the larger your file is. My camera is a little over 60 megapixels in size. So 60 million times 16 bits is about 120 megabytes of data. So that's how you can kind of gauge how big your files will be in an uncompressed form.
And what is PixInsight's cost? Does anybody know what the cost of that is approximately?
PixInsight is a one-time $250, I think, outlay. You get a license, and yeah, there are free alternatives. There are some free alternatives. Deep Sky Sacker is a popular one. There's another up and coming open source one called Cyril, SIRIL. That is pretty compelling to use, I think. Each have their own flavor and ways of doing things. But you know, there are options. PixInsight is probably the most used one for now out there.
PixInsight's price fluctuates for how much we pay based on the value of the euro.
Oh, yeah, right. That's a good point. It is the group that produces it is based out of Spain, so the cost floats with the euro, or the euro dollar conversion, I should say. But it's usually in that 250 to 300 range.
And GIMP is another piece of free software you can use for post-processing as well. Not stacking, but processing.
Yeah. GIMP is once you stretch in there and stuff like that. GIMP is an old school Photoshop open source project. I remember using the first version in the late 90s when it came out. I think it is super cool to have an alternative to Photoshop.
Yes.
So, yeah. So there's a number of options for processing out there, and each have their own. They in the end they all do the same thing. They just have their own ways of doing that.
So thank you. It's great. I see in the chat that Debbie put in another excellent suggestion, which is a new member / beginner astronomy icebreaker. I think that's a great idea. You know, this club, we have just outstanding imagers, astrophotographers. We have outstanding beginners and longtime experts at this. And sometimes we get lost. I used to run a feature during these meetings called Observing Corner, where it was, what did you physically observe? You know, and with your eyes, you through an eyepiece. And that, you know, I don't want to scare people away that think that if you don't have a camera set up that you can't do astronomy. That's far from the case. But it's harder to share your observations. But you're doing events where, you know, people are out there with their eyepieces and you're looking at different targets, maybe with different filters and everything else. But having a new member / beginner get together is a great idea. And we're definitely going to make that happen too. So that, you know, what we would do then, and, you know, just right off the top of my head, is we'll have everybody together, and then we'll have others who are not new, who are not beginners, to answer questions, give help, give ideas. I think it'd be a great thing. And we could do that at Robinson Nature Center. You know, those are fun things to do that when you're in person. So good idea. Thanks, Debbie.
So in a similar vein to my suggestion about everybody imaging the same target, is there something we could do similar with visual observing?
Probably.
I don't know how you, the hard part about visual observing is recording your observation so that you can share it in a reasonable way, but there may be things I'm not thinking about, so.
Right. Well, you know, if you haven't tried sketching, you're going to find that sketching is an extraordinarily challenging thing to do. Bob Dutilly and I,
especially in the winter.
Yeah, especially in the winter when you're wearing gloves. And if you're wearing mittens, it's even harder. But I can tell you, you know, so Bob Dutilly and I took a course together out at the Green Bank Star Party on sketching. And with an expert sketcher, we have expert sketchers in our group, from Steve Jaworski, who's got some awards for from the Astronomical League in this area, and Richard Orr, who does excellent work. And I've done some sketching myself, and I have to tell you, if you want to become an expert observer, just draw a circle that's really no bigger than this, or it's even smaller. Take like a can, you know, take like a soup can and just make a circle on a piece of paper, and, you know, because that's what you're going to see inside your eyepiece, and sit there and study and try and get every star and the nebulosity and whatever else all in its proper proportion and everything. I tell you, you will see things that you've never seen before. And by really studying an object and trying to get it in there. So observing, that's the visual observing, and sharing that is a good idea. And maybe one of the ways is for people to try and do a little bit of sketching. You don't have to be an artist for it. And then you can also make some notes of what you need. The Astronomical League has an excellent program along these ways. And maybe that would be a fun thing to do is, for a group of people who are beginners and they also have very good beginners courses. I'm going to make a note for that for the icebreaker to pull in some of the Astronomical League beginners programs, because it really does help to have a guide, and you don't have to do imaging or anything. So that's a good idea, Wayne.
And don't forget, the Merrill organization is trying to get us to do the constellation thing.
Right.
So that could also be done.
Right. Yeah. Who was doing that? Is it Yvonne, are you doing that?
I was just about to mention it, but Mr. Wayne took my.
Sorry, Arjun.
I'll make a
Hey, this
copy.
is Yvonne. Yeah, I started doing it.
Yeah. So Yvonne's got to jump on it. Any thing you want to share about that? Easy, hard? What are you enjoying it?
Well, I am enjoying it. And then I found the form. So you really need to go out on a clear night so you can see something, but I really like being able to study the sky map, basically, and be able to just look up and recognize something. And they do have a form, and in a way, it does force you to learn a couple skills, like how to sketch, just hand sketch something on a piece of paper so you can prove that you saw it. And you do need to look up things like seeing in transparency. So learning to look up your location and use the sky maps that are on our website. It's very interesting, and it's self-paced, so it doesn't have to be stressful.
Great. So I think we should get going. By the way, if anybody wants to lead up a topic or something, organize it, please volunteer yourself. My biggest limitation is time, like so many of yours. And so there's so many things that we want to do. And like most large organizations, you have subgroups that form, and where there's common interests, and you can kind of create unofficial little committees, to just get out and have fun and do this kind of stuff. So please, anybody who wants to volunteer to head up an activity, an event, get together, just go ahead and do it. Keep me informed, and how we, myself and the HAL board members can help. That's what we're here for. So it's 8 o'clock. Does anybody have anything else? And otherwise I'll move on to the pictures and stuff. Rush won't keep everybody up late tonight.
I had a real quick one. It was more of a piggyback on Wayne's comment earlier about the image.
Yep.
And one thing I thought would be kind of cool to, maybe take that in a little bit of the same direction, but is there a way to combine our images together if we focused on a similar target, so that we could have like a community group picture that we put together where we stack the final results of everybody's efforts together? Is that possible?
Could be done. Could be done.
That'd be kind of cool. I don't know. It's just kind of more of an add-on to your comment earlier. I just was thinking, yeah. I don't know if we'd have to define like the requirements for the picture and that sort of thing, but I do have some software by a company called Registar that will stack across different pixel sizes and different camera ratio, focal ratios and everything. So
that's right. Yeah. Just remember though, you're
compounding.
Your final image is probably going to be the smallest, the most detailed. So,
right.
But yeah, it can be done. And we'll talk about that maybe as part of the discussion on the common imaging, which I guess I got volunteered to lead since I brought the subject up. I'll accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the things we need to figure out is how to share the data.
Of course, yeah, that's the biggest issue.
Google Drive, right? I mean, that's they're free.
What's free? We didn't hear you.
Like
I didn't.
A Google Drive, like all you need is like a
yeah.
Google account, right? And you get 25 free gigabytes of hosting.
Okay, good.
Awesome.
that could do it. We maybe have 2 or 3 people do it, and we can get a lot more data.
Mickey Mouse.
I actually have a suggestion. So Joel Goodman and I are doing this kind of junior scholars program. So I took 3 60-second exposures with a 24-inch telescope of the Elephant Trunk Nebula. So I'll send that to everybody because Mr. Joel said it'd be a great idea because different people are going to process it in different ways. I only have 3 exposures, and I'll also send the bias darks and flats in case anybody likes that.
Okay. All right, Arjun, go ahead and do that. And we'll see what happens. Thank you. Great. Anybody else? I'm gonna go back to screen share here.
I also have a piggyback question from what Mr. Dell said.
Arjun, you have to hold still. Your voice is going in and out.
Oh, okay. I have a piggyback question of what Mr. Dale said.
Okay.
What software are you using for like the programming for the sequencer?
You do it from within the software itself, so it's all inside Nina, and it's basically just dragging and dropping little blocks of functionality to make a list of things to do.
Right, but like, what programming language are you using?
Well, the application is written in C#, in Microsoft.NET, and the sequence file itself is saved to a JSON file. So if you know what JSON is, you can read that file and parse it in other applications.
Okay, sure.
That's JSON.
Thank you, Dale.
Mm-hmm.
And Crystal put a note in there for other events at GCS. Just a reminder, that's the Glenelg Country School, GCS, if you were wondering what those letters mean. Very good. Thank you. Let me go back to screen share here real quick. There you go. And then, so Dr. Kerry Least was supposed to be our speaker today, but now and you know, it's kind of weird. Jim is, by the way, Jim Johnson was the one that brought Dr. Least to us, and he was sorry he couldn't make it. But when I put the slide up last month, I had put down November's guest presenter, not October's. So it was a little bit eerie that I had put the wrong month down to begin with. But now I've got him. I just left the slide here because hopefully he'll be well enough and he'll be fully recovered from COVID, and he could present to us next month. So we'll see. Otherwise, we'll find a backup. So now time to go to our members' photos, and without in any special order here, this quite spectacular image belongs to Mr. Jim Johnson.
Yeah, it looks like something pretty violent happened here. This is Crater Tycho in the Southern Lunar Highlands. I processed it with a high degree of contrast to bring out the rays. That whole area is pretty light down there anyway, just the rays are brighter, so I emphasize the rays. Trying to remember where the moon was when I took this. What was the date? Probably, gosh, I'm sorry, I don't remember. But I just like all the rugged features and the rays overlapping craters and things like that in this image.
I love the picture. Awesome. And here's another one of yours coming up. There you go.
This one I was playing, all summer long I've been working on planetary imaging, and this was probably my best data on Jupiter. All 3 images were taken with exactly the same data. They were just processed differently. And while I was doing that, it just kind of had them lined up next to one another and said, hey, what if I put them in the same image? And there they are. And basically the difference between the 3 images is going from left to right, I added the red channel as a luminance layer in the first one, in the middle one green, and then in the right one I used the blue channel. and you can see different things in different images. See more fine detail in the one on the left with reddest luminance, and see a lot more contrast and larger scale details. And the one on the right, my favorite is the one where green is in there. And there's so many options that you can use for luminance layers. I just haven't explored them all yet, but it'd be interesting to do that. I did not shoot luminance when I was at the telescope. No luminance filter was used.
That's very cool. So, you know, there's been a lot in the news lately about the wind speed changing at the Great Red Spot. It's been increasing quite a bit. I don't know if anybody who's been imaging Jupiter for a long time, especially with the red spot in there, has done any side-by-side comparisons to look at the size and the shape and anything, you know, recently compared to what it's been. But that would be something very cool to see too, if you can pull something from years ago. They can try to move. There we go. Arjun, you're up.
Okay, so this is my image of IC 1318 on a 60-second exposure using a 24-inch telescope in narrowband filters. So this brings out a lot of the green and the red. And I didn't just use narrowband, I actually used an I prime filter, an H alpha filter, and an O3 filter. And I didn't really get much of a signal from the O3, so it looks not so bluish. There isn't much blue. But I did get a really good signal from the H alpha. And since I substituted green for H alpha, I got this nice blue. I also color mapped this differently to OHI and HOI. And I did a lot of funky stuff. But this was my clean image. This is the true color image, which I got.
So that's great. So Arjun is using a remote telescope. He's dialing in using his using the internet, and that's how he's using such a large telescope. Do you know where the telescope's located, Arjun?
Yeah, there's lots of telescopes.
Arjun, we can't hear you. Your mic.
Okay, there are lots of telescopes. The main one is in Chile, and then there is one in Canada, one in North Carolina. And
So which one did you use for here?
I used the one in North Carolina.
Okay, that's great. All right, and here's another one, Arjun. Stay there.
This is M42 and M43. I was actually aiming for M43, but then since the Orion Nebula was so big, I got M43 and M42. And it was kind of eerie because I really wanted to observe two nebulas in one picture the day before. So I did get what I want. So the really bright nebula on to the top left is M42. And the really small nebulosity in the center is M43.
You got another one coming up. There you go. And then you'll have one more after this.
Then this is M8. I used it with narrowband filters, and I used a 60-second exposure. I mapped this to HOS, and it's still really odd, but I liked how the image came out. So I decided to send this one.
Very good. And the last one.
Yeah, this is NGC 6992. This is the Eastern Veil. And I used a 60-second exposure with true color, R, G, and B. Nothing funky. It's the basic image. So I took a 60-second exposure, 3 60-second exposures with R.
Arjun, you lost your voice again, but anyways, excellent job, Arjun. You got a lot of fans up here. We're a little scared of what you're going to be doing in 10 years, I can tell you. So, and Chris and Jared, you're up.
Oh, I thought that picture looked familiar. I was like, somebody else got almost the same framing as my shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I just shared the two pictures that I focused on when I was out at Alpha Ridge. So this was the this was on the Red Cat again, right, with the ASI 294 shot with the L Extreme filter. I think I ended up, not all of it was taken at Alpha Ridge. I think the picture totaled about 6.5 hours of integration time or something around there. So I think it turned out pretty good. I was happy with the way it came out. So, and then I think we shared one more.
Yeah, you did.
And this was the Heart Nebula that I think a few of you stopped by to look at on the stretch when I was using when I was out at Alpha Ridge. But this is the end result of, I think, about 7.5 hours. Same Red Cat. I'm loving the wide field small Red Cat. My other telescope is the 130 millimeter refractor, and you know, it's hard. It's hard once you pull the little 250 out and you transport that out into your backyard, and you know, I gotta transition back and pull out the big scope again and take the time. But I'm still enjoying the wide field view right now, and this was the end result of the Heart Nebula. So thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, it's great. Brad.
Okay, so this is part of the North America Nebula. It's the Cygnus Wall region. So I got a monochrome camera recently. So this was, I think this was the second night of imaging with the monochrome camera and having access to narrowband filters. So I had imaged the North American Nebula before, but this was, I think, my first thing that I processed in PixInsight, because I had to get that because I couldn't figure out how to get it to look good in Photoshop when I was shooting with narrowband. But yeah, so that's the Cygnus Wall. That's through my telescope is a 130 millimeter with a focal reducer. The focal length is 728, and Zwo 294 Pro is the camera that I'm using.
Very nice. You know, it makes me laugh. Some of you, and maybe you were one of them on this one, Brad, send me the images and I said, Phil, if it's not good enough for the presentation, I fully understand. And I don't know if some people send these in, and I'm looking at these pictures going, what is not good enough? I have yet to see a picture that's not good enough except for my own. So, but these are all excellent. I mean, this is pretty cool. It's fun to look at. There you go. And there's another one.
So this is NGC 7380, the Wizard Nebula. Did you do the one that has the
yeah, I was leaving that as a surprise.
So yeah. So this, I've lost track of where this particular image that I sent Phil is. I've spent a ridiculous amount of time on 7380. So I think actually from this image, I've got another 8 hours on this from the state of this image that I was messing around with today, where I actually used a multi-narrow band pass filter, a Radian quad filter that I had for one-shot color cameras that, like, they say on the website is like, you can use this for luminance narrowband, which, you know, I didn't know whether that was going to work. It works. But anyway, so I've got another 8 hours on top of this one now. But the Wizard, I love this. I love asking people if they can see the Wizard. Like, does anybody see the Wizard? That, you know, obviously if you know where the Wizard is, then you know where it is. But all right, now show where the Wizard is.
Here's the Wizard.
Hey, now go back. You cannot unsee the Wizard once you see the Wizard. I love it. So that's one of my,
a Rorschach test. Yeah,
right. You can never unsee that. So I spent a lot of time on that one. It's over 20 hours. And then this was I think on the same night that I took the data for the Cygnus Wall, where I was just playing for the first time, and I also had bought a set of LRGB filters. So I was like, you know what? Andromeda's up. Let's see what we can do with that. And so this was it's not very much data. I don't remember exactly how much, but it's only like a couple hours, you know, of LRGB combined, or not. There's no L. It's only RGB in this. Arjun's asking how many nights it took to see the unseeable wizard. 7 nights, I think, total now that I've spent on that. And so Andromeda, I like this Andromeda picture. It's you know, it's obviously, I could have framed it better. I didn't want to have to take 2 sets of flats, so I didn't change the way that the telescope was pointing, or the way the camera was rotated rather. So that's Andromeda, and then I think I got one more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is the Cave Nebula, which is Caldwell 9. This is like 3 hours, I think. No, it's 50 minutes each of hydrogen, alpha, sulfur, and oxygen 3. What camera am I using? It's a mono ZWO ASI 294 Pro is the model number of it. And yeah, so they say that this looks like the opening of a cave. I don't know.
Yeah, well, when you figure it out, you can put a drawing on there and we'll re-show it.
Yeah, do it in MS Paint. All right, well, that's my stuff.
Excellent. Thank you. Dominic, are you on? So Dominic sent me this one. It was
There you go.
there you are.
Hi.
I didn't see it. Go ahead.
Nice hearing. I'm sort of intimidated by what I've seen so far.
Nothing to be intimidated about.
I did a little astrophotography. Very little film and stuff in the 80s and 90s with a Celestron C8. And I've since then got modern stuff, and I can't believe the mounts. They're incredible, but I've not really gotten into it yet. So for the eclipse, I wasn't going to use a telescope or anything. So I got my camera and a Tamron 150 to 600 millimeter lens, and I have a solar filter for it, a screw-in filter, but I didn't use that because the light was dim enough to start with. And several years ago, there was this is in North Beach in Calvert County, and they had a partial solar some years ago. Same thing in the morning as it came up. You saw a bit of an eclipse and then it waned. So this is early in the morning in North Beach, and I just had the camera on a tripod, and I was running around trying to get the sun and maybe people in context in the image. I wasn't going to get, a major view of the sun and prominences or sunspots. So I have other pictures where I went to the full 600 millimeters, and you get the whole sun sort of, and in the clouds and stuff. But I thought keeping a context with the pier and the bay and stuff, just might be a little bit artsy. So that was my attempt, as I'm still working out, getting familiar with the telescope and the mount that I have. So that's it.
It's very cool. I was wondering if the people actually knew that there was a partial eclipse going on. They don't look like they're looking that way.
Yeah, it's there were a lot of people there that did. I was surprised, because we think the general public is like totally unaware. This probably got a little publicity, I suspect. I forget, but you're right. They don't look it, but there were others that you would see leaning on the rail, sort of looking towards the sun.
Got it.
But I wanted to get a little bit more of a profile.
Yep.
So, it's a lady of some sort with her hands out, and the guy looks like he's a zombie. But, it was just something to do, so I didn't lose out on the astronomical aspect of the eclipse.
Very nice. Well, thank you very much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Good to see you again.
So Ian wasn't able to make the meeting, but he sent his pictures that he recently took up in West Virginia of Jupiter. I don't have the details on this slide, so I don't remember exactly what they were, but you can see his two very nice pictures of Jupiter and of Saturn. So, and then Wayne. You're on mute.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was looking for the mute button. So this is Stefan's quintet taken from Alpha Ridge Park. As you can see, it's 10 and a half hours of exposure time. This is in the constellation of Pegasus. The Stefan's quintet is that group of galaxies to the right of center. There's obviously 5 galaxies in the quintet. And what's interesting about the Stefan's quintet is that they're not actually a group. There's a group of galaxies, and then there's a galaxy that's not a member of the group. So the blue galaxy kind of to the lower left is NGC 7320, and it's at a distance of about 39 million light years. The other galaxies in that group are all at a distance of about 300 million light years. So it just gives you an idea that the sizes of the objects in the universe are quite diverse, because you would think they would all be about the same size and same distance, since they look the same size. So
Yeah, very nice, very cool. Kurt, are you here, Kurt? Kurt's not here, but Kurt sent this picture. Maybe somebody can identify it. I didn't. I guess I didn't put what the target is here.
it's the North American
North
nebula.
American
Like the North.
There you go.
I also call it the Xenomorph Nebula, because it looks like the profile of a xenomorph in Aliens there.
And then looks like the Val, right? Oh, it's NGC 6960, which is the Val. Yeah.
Yeah, or Witch's Broom Nebula, that part there, and the part that the kind of like wedge-shaped thing on the side there is Pickering's Triangle. So that's Broom Nebula, Witch's Broom right there, and that part of it's called the Witch's Broom. And then on the left side of the image, there's a triangular structure that's called Pickering's Triangle.
Very nice. And that's it. So thank you, everybody, for joining, and the conversation and the ideas are great. I'm definitely going to act on them with your help, because I'm going to need your help. And anybody else have anything before we call it a night? Well, then with that said, I am going to stop sharing and say thank you to everybody. So thank you.
Very good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Phil.